Hot takes are back, and it was an interesting mix of pessimism and positivity with this one, so this is a fun one. I can't wait to get into it, but before I fully do, just make sure you're leaving a like on the video. It really does help the algorithm out a ton. I really do appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Plus, if you plan on doing a responsible sports betting in the near future, just make sure to check out my link in the description below. Pascal Siakam will be traded in 3 weeks. Now that is a very specific shelf life for his remaining time with the Toronto Raptors on this one. I'm going to completely disagree on this. I do believe that Masai Ujiri is going to give Darko Rajakovic a fair shot at figuring things out. Obviously 1-3 to start the year. Things at times look promising, at times really don't. So I think Darko is going to be afforded a good period to see if he can make this team into anything this season. And if he can't, then maybe we see some trades at some point during the season, maybe closer towards the trade deadline. But in 3 weeks, for sure, I do not see a Siakam deal happening. I think Siakam will be here at the very least until the trade deadline, and then possibly afterwards, depending on how stingy Masai wants to be in terms of the deal that he gets back. But yeah, no chance, no chance Pascal Siakam gets traded in 3 weeks. Speaking of Siakam, Pascal Siakam is being underutilized and is still top 2 on this squad. I actually agree on both points here. I think they're both very valid and very true points. First of all, obviously Scottie Barnes has looked fantastic to open this season. I think that's where the conversation of top 2 comes in, where, you know, leading into the season, I think it was solidified that Pascal was the guy, the best player on the team. Through 4 games, through this obviously incredibly small sample size, you could actually make a really good case that Scottie Barnes has been the best player so far on the team. I think you would absolutely be heard out on that one. And it's partly because I agree with the other points in the statement that Pascal Siakam is being underutilized. I don't think Darko Rajakovic quite knows what he wants to do with Pascal Siakam in the system yet, because some of the spots that he's utilized Siakam in really don't suit his strengths. It's I'm just having a laugh because I'm thinking about the fact that all the spots off the top of my head that I think of Siakam being used in so far, like at least the primary spots that I can think of him being used in, is just as a stretch 4 and, you know, shooting from the perimeter at 3-point, and like that's not Siakam's game. That's not who he is. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head right now, Siakam's averaging like 16 points per game, which is obviously well below what we're used to seeing from Pascal Siakam. So I completely agree. He is absolutely being underutilized. I don't think Darko has a good grasp on how to handle Pascal Siakam's skill set within his offense just yet. And I do think, obviously, you know, the longer time goes on, the more there's time to gel, there's time to like really figure out the schemes. Hopefully this will change, because if this is the role that you plan on having Siakam in kind of moving forward, you might as well, going back to the first hot take of this video, you might as well trade him, because shit, man, there's so many better ways to use Siakam than just as a stretch big who, you know, will occasionally get ball handling duties and stuff like that. But like, yeah, just so much of it I think of is just like the 3-pointers and the spacing that he's being used for. And I'm just like, man, that really ain't it with Siakam's game. So yes, I completely agree. Absolutely being underutilized and absolutely still top 2 on the team. This is a bit of a long one, so you're gonna have to bear with me as I read here. With the dynamic duo of Scottie Barnes and Pascal Siakam leading the charge, the Toronto Raptors are poised to surprise the league early on by showcasing a potent small ball lineup that will revolutionize their play style and propel them to a surprising top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference. So this is what I was talking about when I was talking about optimism, right? But yeah, like this mailbag, these hot takes have been like a fun mix of like optimism and pessimism, this obviously being on the optimistic side. And as far as the Raptors being a top 4 seed, and in particular driven by their opponent's small ball, at least going off the early sample size, absolutely not. Not because I don't think they can get that kind of regular season success, which I mean, I don't. I said in my bold predictions video last week that at best I think 6th seed is a very good expectation. That's like if everything goes right for the team. I can definitely see them getting to that. That being said, in particular with the point about the small ball, my issues with the small ball is the Raptors, so far at the time of this recording, which mind you, this is being filmed before the Bucks game is played, and there's a good chance this video probably drops after the Bucks game is played, so just keep that in mind. But at this point in the season, the Raptors have one of the worst defensive rebounding percentages in all of basketball. I believe they're bottom 3, at least according to NBA.com stats, all that stuff. And on top of which, they've also given up 20 plus second chance points in each of their 4 games. They're actually dead last in the league in that regard. So I don't know if small ball is the way to go for this team. I mean, I can certainly understand why on the surface level you could see some of the personnel and seeing Pascal Siakam, think of him as a small ball 5, or even if you're envisioning Scotty Barnes as the small ball 5, sure. I don't think this is the group for that, and if they are, I think there's still a lot to be figured out, because right now the early returns on that are poor, quite poor actually. So I don't know if that's the way to go. If you disagree with me, drop it in the comment section, but at the very least I think they have a lot more to figure out in that department before the small ball gets good. And if they do figure it out, I think by the time that they do figure it out, it'll be too late for them to be a top 4 seed with the amount of anticipated losses I would imagine they accumulate while they are figuring that out. The Raptors will go further than Kawhi. Why specifically Kawhi? Why not just say the Clippers? Is it still that personal? Was it ever really that personal? Anyways, probably not, no. I think I'm actually in the minority camp that I kind of like the James Harden to the Clippers trade. For the most part, I'm still sitting there and I'm not anticipating much out of the Clippers because of the injury history, and just quite frankly, I can't rely on that group to stay fully healthy to make an impactful run. Like, yeah, if there was a perfect world where all those guys could stay healthy, being obviously Kawhi, Paul George, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, etc., the depth behind that, core 4 is not actually as bad as you may think after the trade to get James Harden. And this is very obviously an all-in year for the Clippers. And should in a perfect world everybody stay healthy, I think this is a team that could make a run to the conference finals. Are they good enough to take down the Nuggets? Yeah, maybe not. Depending on who you ask, depending on how things gel. But that being said, I do not expect them to stay healthy. It's just the unfortunate circumstances of the fact that, like, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard in particular just do not stay healthy. And it sucks because both of them are great players, but they're all missing time at some crucial point, and it usually ends up costing that team. Regardless, I don't think there's really a world in which I can envision the Raptors this year, especially going further than the Clippers. Absolute best case scenario, they're both first round exits. So if you want to technically say going further would be like the Raptors losing in 7, whereas the Clippers losing 6 or something like that, sure, you could grasp at those straws. But realistically, no, I really don't see it. Last one here is also a little bit on the longer side, so just bear with me as I read. Let's see. The Raptors are probably going to screw up the tank because they can't get over themselves. They're going to play to win and forget that they should be tanking and lose in the playoffs. I see what you're saying. You're making the big assumption here that, the Raptors will make the playoffs in the first place. We don't have anything concrete to say that they will or won't. I think it's important to remember, at least for this year, well, 2 things. Obviously that A, the Spurs do technically own the Raptors pick. That being said, if it's in the top 6, I believe it was, in terms of protections, that the Raptors will keep the pick. Also, I haven't fully dove into the draft class for this season, but I believe early indicators and, at least from the bits and pieces that I've read about this year's draft class, is it's not particularly impressive. So this is one of the few years that I wouldn't mind if the Raptors were just like, hey, you know what? Get the young guys experience and try to compete. that being said, like, are they gonna shoot themselves in the foot, you know, get to the playoffs and lose out on draft positioning? Obviously, ultimately lose their pick to the Spurs. Like, yeah, I think there's a good chance. I think there's a good... I don't know if the Raptors are bad enough to be in that bottom six. I mean, there's certainly some indicators that would say they are, but there's also, I think, at least a little bit of optimism that they could actually piece this together and at the very worst, I think, be like a play-in team. I don't know, man. I don't think of all the years, this is one where I'm too particularly concerned about the tank. Like, if you asked me this last season with some of the guys like in last year's draft class, I would have absolutely been saying, yeah, play to lose. Get some of the like really good draft prospects in last year's class. This year's class, not really as exciting, so yeah, if they want to play themselves out of the top 6 pick, they can play themselves out of the top 6 pick. I don't think it's that big of a deal this year. All right, that does it for me. What do you folks think? Which of these hot takes do you sincerely disagree with? Because I'm sure that you have them, whether it be obviously the original hot take or me responding to the hot take. Drop it all in the comment section below. Let me know your thoughts. Other than that, folks, you know the usual drill at the end of the videos. If you're still here and you're still watching, first of all, thank you. Second of all, hit that like button because that'll mean more people can watch, and I would really appreciate it if you did that. Other than that, folks, subscribe to the channel if you're new here. And yeah, it's been JJ Buckets. It's been a pleasure, and I will see everybody next time.